Hey, just before the podcast kicks off, I'd like to say really quickly, if you're stuck for something to do for Halloween weekend, on Friday the 30th and Saturday the 31st of October, there's going to be an online burlesque show hosted by the Tartan Unicorn Burlesque called Trick or Tease. It's on Friday the 30th, Saturday 31st of October. The show starts at 8pm, but doors will electronically open at 7 o'clock for a little bit of chat before the show kicks off. It's £10 per night or £15 for both nights. And with that, I don't even think you have to be there on the night to watch it. You can watch it for a week after. So if you want to have a really spooky, spectacular cabaret night in, then you can click the link below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. There'll also be information for how to get tickets if you're listening to this to a podcast, and if you go onto my Instagram, the link in the bio will take you to the events page as well, where you can get tickets. It's going to be an absolutely spectacular show. We have performers from all over the world and some of the best performers in this industry ready to give you a spectacular sensation of a night. So anyway, back to the podcast. Hey, it's Lil, and welcome to Tarot Reads, where myself and my co-host Stevie...
Hello!
We'll get smoother at it, it'll be fine. We look at every aspect we can about a tarot card each week. We're talking the history, the meanings, the designs for every single card in a tarot deck. So join us for possibly the most in-depth tarot podcast, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be seeing me create a tarot journal spread based on everything that we're talking about here at the same time. So, seeing as this is the very first week, I figured we should introduce ourselves a little bit and then just have a little chat about tarot in general and the kind of like general history of tarot, both like as cards and as a fortune telling device kind of thing. So my name is Lilius, or Lil. I'm a costume maker, an artist. I run a little Etsy shop called Bujo Cult. It would help if I could pronounce the name of my own flipping shop, hey?
That's fine.
Where I sell bullet journal, stickers, and things like that. A lot of them have like that kind of witchy twist to them because that's the aesthetic. I don't really assign myself with a set of spiritual beliefs. I'd actually say that I was an atheist, but a very pagan atheist, an atheist witch. Yeah.
Yeah.
In there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think that works.
Cool. Okay. But yeah, I bought my first tarot deck when I was about 14 or 15, and I tried teaching myself with a little book that I had that came with it. I think I learned like the major arcana. Is it right? Okay, is it arcana or arcana?
It's arcana. Yeah, arcana.
I've been saying it right, but just okay, cool. So
it's not the arcane.
Arcane. Arcana.
Arcana.
So I taught myself the major arcana, ish. Do you know what I mean? Like I had a very surface level knowledge of what was going on, but I don't think I learned anything in the suits, really. Maybe I knew aces, do you know what I mean? And of all that knowledge, I only remember it when I'm reading the meanings for things, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course it's that, I remember. But like I don't really remember it at all. So I want to learn it now, and I'm a very all or nothing person, so I really want to learn it like as in depth as physically possible, which is part of the reason we're doing this.
Yes,
So
definitely.
Stevie, introduce yourself.
Hello. So yeah, I'm Stevie. God, I'm an anthropologist by training and basically a drama teacher by practice. So, you know, kind of human culture, the occult, storytelling, all that kind of stuff has always been like really, really fascinating to me. I grew up actually reading the tarot. I was all like, ooh! But yeah, no, I... practicing witch since day one. No, but...
It is cool, though.
No, but like, so I come from a family which has a very diverse spiritual background. So my mum's side of the family is Catholic, but I guess you could probably class us as very lapsed Catholics. I also grew up attending a lot of spiritualist churches as a child, and the kind of the occult, magic, all that kind of stuff was kind of very much part of my upbringing as a child. So I started to read the tarot when I was, goodness, I had my first tarot set before I was 8. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was very young when I first started reading the tarot. Like, I remember family members, like, sat at our table with, like, the deck completely spread out and, like, doing readings for people and stuff. So I was very much brought up with that kind of thing. I kind of see the tarot as both a psychological tool in the sense of kind of giving you almost that kind of internal psychological guidance. I do believe in the occult. I do believe in things that we can't explain. I'm not an atheist. I am definitely some kind of theist. I would probably class myself now as more of a practicing Vajrayana Buddhist. But I do also have a very kind of witchy occult side to me as well. So the tarot is something which is very important to me, and so I'm quite glad that you've invited me to talk about it for this podcast.
Can I say, before we even go into like history stuff, I think I'm similar to you with the psychological thing of the tarot, because I have this. So I'd had tarot readings like throughout my life here and there, and they're always like, alright, whatever. Then I was in Croatia. I met 2 amazing people called Martina and Elvis. Brilliant people. One of those times where you just click and you just hit it off, and it's like you've been friends for your whole life. They gave me a reading, and I have never had a tarot reading like it. Like, honestly, it just clicked in places that I didn't. It was like a huge big reading. It wasn't like a 3-card thing. It was a huge big thing. And it was therapeutic to like this extreme level. And afterwards I kind of went back over it, because I was like, wait, I don't believe in the... I was about to say the heart of the cards. That's Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't believe in the heart of the cards. But you know what I mean?
Wow.
I don't believe that kind of thing is. But I do think that when you are looking at these vague meanings and all of this kind of stuff going on, and you're tying them around into a story in your head and as a person, like you clip those things into your subconscious stuff. So
Yes.
You see something that's like, oh, this card represents a strong male figure in your life, and blah, blah. You instantly think of somebody, and then as they start saying things, you're gonna start thinking about that relationship, or what that means, or what's happened in the past, and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's like flipping a coin. You know, when you have a question with 2 answers, and you don't know which one to do, and you go like, all right, I'll flip a coin. You flip a coin, you catch it. As soon as you see what it is, you know what you want the answer to be. Because if it's like, oh, it's heads. Yeah, I definitely wanted that. And you go, oh, it's tails. I wanted the other one. I'm going to go with the other one. And you instantly know what it is. I feel like it's that, but on a much more complicated level.
Yeah,
For me. You know, I don't judge anybody who does have a more spiritual side to it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from with it.
Yeah, no, I totally get you from that perspective. I think you can see the tarot as almost like a psychological crossroads, in the sense of, okay, so these are my options. And you do, you can start, I guess, because the images in the tarot, it very much harkens back to like Jung's idea of the collective subconscious, like the archetypes, as you say, through figures like the emperor, the empress, the strong male, strong female, the guide through like the Hierophant or the magician, do you know what I mean? There's archetypes that you can pull from. And I've definitely had experiences with the tarot where I've read them myself, where I've, just as you've described, I've been like, well, that's the option my heart wants. Oh, that's not the option that's actually really for me. And it's been a very good kind of guiding kind of point. I have had other readings where stuff has come, like, in my opinion, do you know what I mean? Stuff has come up in the future, the way the cards are predicted, and it's been scarily accurate. Do you know what I mean? So I do also, as I said kind of at the beginning, I do come from both a psychological standpoint, but I also do come from a kind of witchy, occulty standpoint as well. Because I've had experiences with tarot readings, which is like, how do you explain that? In my opinion. I mean, there's probably, I mean, I don't know. How do you explain it?
The way I see it is just because but just because I'm atheist and I'm not spiritual, in inverted commas, in that kind of way, that doesn't mean that I have the right to diminish somebody else's lived experience. Do you know what I mean? So I could say like, oh, but it could be because of this and it could be because of this, but I'm not you, I wasn't there in that moment. Do you know what I mean? So it's...
Yeah, totally.
Just because if that happened to me, I might see it in a different point of view, or say like if that happened to me, maybe that would completely change my perspective on things. It's the same thing as like I don't believe in ghosts, but if I was in a room with an apparition of a hunting woman or something, then I might change my mind very quickly. Do you know what I mean? The evidence presented itself to me, which is actually a really, really good little segue into the fact that you have a podcast coming out this week.
I do have a podcast coming out this week. I know, that was a very good segue. I'm
that
like,
was
woo!
natural.
That was natural. Yeah, so my podcast is called The Widdershins Yarn, and we're going to be looking at kind of essentially the aesthetics, the culture, and the, I guess, social and psychological impact of horror and the horror genre, basically, is what my podcast is about. And specifically, the first kind of mini-series will be looking at ghosts and ghost stories, and I guess looking at ghosts through different cultural lenses and what, you know, what's kind of happening there. Basically, I get to combine my two loves of like anthropology and like the occult and everything into one little happy squishy... Squishy? Is that even a word? I don't know.
It might be, I don't know.
I'm just going to call it squishy. A squishy thing where I just get to talk about these sorts of things. And lovingly? Oh my goodness. Luckily, you are my co-host as well, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm there
very
lovingly
much.
too.
You are. Hearts.
It's sickening.
I know.
I am really, really excited about it. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And, like, we have these conversations all the time where we, like, end up going really deep into the history of some kind of cultural phenomenon thing. And it's every single time that we finish, I'm like, damn, I should have recorded that. You have some amazingly interesting things to say about that stuff, and you have so much knowledge about those areas that I'm really excited that you're getting to like share teach the children that you're getting to share that.
Well, to be honest, I'm just I'm just happy that I think I finally have an outlet to be able to pour all my useless knowledge into. So,
it's not useless, it's good.
Rather than just talking at you. Which I will still be doing, but hopefully also on a wider scale. So, you know.
So for this episode, we should totally cover a little bit of the history of tarot.
Yes, let's do that.
Which is more your field. So I'm gonna hand over to you for a minute because I know vaguely that it started as decks of cards, like normal decks of cards.
Yeah.
And I know that there was a game as well, like a tarot game.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with like
divination,
divination or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I would like to point out, I think, at the very beginning of all of this, is that there is very much a tension between tarot historians and tarot practitioners. So tarot historians very much come from the point of view, just as you said, that like tarot developed out of this kind of like various different kinds of card games, which have some, potentially some kind of origin in the Middle East, and then kind of filtered into Europe. Tarot practitioners are very much like, no! Tarot has been this secret esoteric system that has been handed down since the Library of Alexandria, and like, get very... Well, not all tarot practitioners, but do you know what I mean? There is definitely this tension between how it potentially historically developed and how kind of metaphysically people view the tarot as a divination tool. But yeah, so I just wanted to point that out first of all because there is this
No,
kind of
that's
tension.
handy. Does that mean in future when we're talking about like a certain card's history and stuff like that, we should say like tarot historians say that and tarot practitioners say, so we can separate those two?
I think so because
Cool.
I think along with that, it's two very interesting strains of thought. I mean, kind of like what you were saying, you know, at the beginning. There's everyone's got different kinds of truths. Do you know what I mean? So exploring those different truths, I think, would be quite interesting. But yeah, I think it's also very important to say that there isn't an agreed origin point for the tarot. You know, so it's one of those situations where people are like, but but I mean, so for example, you've got people like P.D. Ouspensky who talks about this very romanticized, you know, idea of the origin of the tarot being amongst the Spanish gypsies in the 14th century. Whether or not that's true, but like, basically, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the tarot essentially was brought to Western Europe through either Turkey or Egypt, basically. So it kind of had this sort of origin, potentially in the Middle East, and then kind of filtered down into like Europe, basically. Interestingly enough, people seem to think that it's got an origin within Islamic society, which I never even knew about, and potentially within the Mamluk dynasty or the Abbasid Caliphate. I can't even pronounce that. Hold on, you're gonna have to edit. You're gonna have to edit this bit. The Abbasid Caliphate, yeah. And so essentially, yeah, it's got this link to the Islamic world originally.
That's cool. I've never heard of that either. I've definitely heard of some kind of Italian origin going on.
Yes,
Oh.
exactly. Oh.
Oh.
So yeah, it was very much a system of, you know, a game that was played by the Italian aristocracy, basically. There's evidence for that, essentially by the 1500s. And what's quite interesting is that it was believed to be kind of a system that players would draw random cards and they would use the thematic associations within the cards to write poetic verses about one another. So
That's lovely.
right, so it was very much like a game that was played by the
Like a
aristocracy.
parlor game kind of thing.
Yeah, basically, very
I
much
kind of
that.
want to do that for an episode now. Can we just write poems about each other using tarot cards?
I mean, to be fair, I'm all for anybody writing anything about me, good or bad. So, you know. I mean, you know, all press is good press.
Same.
But yeah, so I mean, you can see this kind of aristocratic association. You know, it kind of makes me wonder: was it similar to? You've got games, for example, that were played by the aristocracy in Japan, for example, which were all about kind of spurring this idea and creating ideas for like poetry and, you know, high art and all this kind of stuff. So it's very much, it's interesting that tarot seem to have this kind of potential origin as being springboards for art and imagination and all this kind of stuff.
I just had a vision of like a couple of 100 years in the future and two twats making a podcast about, I don't know if you're familiar, but in the art community there's random word generators, like loads of websites of random word generators. You can get apps for them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that you randomly generate like a character, their setting, something physical about their appearance and stuff like that. And it's just two people in the future making a podcast being like, yeah, they used to use it to tell each other's fortunes. The archer with the
With the
the
thingy.
missing right arm, and that would signify.
Well, I mean, it's quite interesting that you say that because that almost comes across as like this kind of choose your own adventure style kind of game. But there's actually an artist called Bill Wolfe who he has spent a lot of his life kind of focused on kind of creating his art around the tarot. And he has said, and I quote, so Wolfe, who doesn't use cards for divination, believes that originally the meanings of the imagery was parallel to the mechanics of the play of the game. The random draw of the cards created a new, unique narrative each and every time the game was played, and the decisions players made influence the unfolding of that narrative. So it is essentially that kind of choose your own adventure style game.
That's so interesting though as well, because see that really good reading that I had with Martina and Elvis, it was like because they read tarot in a way that I'd never really seen. I'd seen people be like, and this card means da, 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 and this card means da, 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 and that was like how I'd learnt it as well. Whereas they kind of, it was like a story. Do you know what I mean? They looked at all the cards and how they interacted with each other, and how like, well, you've got this character turning up, so perhaps like in their past they were this to you, but because this card is turning up like representing something in the future, perhaps that relationship has changed and it means this now. And like, do you know what I mean? Instead of just sort of stating like, or regurgitating the meanings, they really looked at how the cards interacted, in inverted commas, with each other. Like, what the, you know what I mean.
No, I totally know what you mean, because I think it's what's really important to note here is that, you know, people and humans, as a species, we think in stories, right? And so I think the tarot is really good as a tool to, like, you know, link up characters, link up narratives, link up themes. You know, I think it is a really good way of being able to look inside yourself and pull out the narrative that you need to work through.
Yeah,
and that kind of reminds me of what you're saying there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
No,
is
that's...
it? I'm like, is it?
That was one thing I was going to say, actually, when you were talking, because I think the Italian thing sprung into my head, because didn't there used to be a card game that was almost like Top Trumps? Because I've read something about the Fool being like the either being used as the kind of topist of the top trumps or the lowest of the top trumps kind of thing.
Because it represented 0, because it was the wild card, so it could be used
in the same way
anywhere.
the ace can be 1 or it can be after king, depending on how you're playing a game of cards kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The Fool was actually considered to be like probably one of the most powerful cards in the deck because it had that changeability, which is quite interesting.
And I've heard quite a lot about the Fool's journey, of how have you heard this? The major arcana is like the Fool's journey.
I don't actually think I have heard this. Tell me about this. Tell me. Teach me.
I don't know enough about it to tell you about it. You know what? Actually, I will do some research then. So for the episode on the Fool, I will school you. I will teach the children of the Fool's journey, of so whatever it is.
I'm assuming because the Fool is 0, or counts as 0 in the tarot, then the Fool's journey then will be the Fool kind of travel through the major arcana, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
I will find out. It was maybe the first thing that springs into my head, though it's probably totally wrong, is that maybe it's a really good memory technique for learning the cards. Whether that's where it comes from or not, but it could be used that way because, like you were saying, how people think in stories. And you have those people who have like incredible memories and all this kind of stuff, and they have that idea of the memory palace and all of this kind of thing. And they can be given a huge amount of numbers and they see them as a story, a journey of things. Because you know, some of those numbers could represent a character, and that character has however many of this thing, and then they travel to this place. Do you know what I mean? And they see that as a story. So I wonder if it's a similar kind of thing of,
well, I imagine,
if you make the story of a journey, are you more likely to remember the stops along the way, kind of thing.
Well, actually, yeah, that would make sense, and it probably ties into Joseph Campbell's theory of the hero's journey. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of...
Oh, yeah, of course.
That kind of traditional narrative that so many different stories follow. Because if you think about it, like the very last card in the Major Arcana is the World, which is like, you know, which is completion, which is, the end. Like, I've got this beautiful tarot set, which is based on fairy tales, and the World is called Happily Ever After, and it's that...
Oh.
You know that that scene in Snow White, in the original Snow White animation, where they kind of ride off into the sunset and then like the giant castle appears out of the clouds? Do you remember that?
No, it's been a long time since I've seen that film, but I'll trust you.
I'm making all this shit up. No, I'm not. But no, but it is. It's that image of that, you know, the beautiful kind of fairy tale castle kind of looming out of the clouds, and it's this idea of you found your happily ever after, you found your completion, unless obviously you get it reversed, and then it's like the world's crumbling.
Me daily.
I mean, hashtag same.
Yeah. The history of the design is something that I'm quite interested in, especially because at some point I would, like, it's on my bucket list of things to do, make a stop motion animation and design an entire tarot deck with each card having an individual design that's tied up with its meaning to make it easier for people learning to read and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the suits, I'm assuming, would have been like suits of a normal playing deck. They wouldn't have been intricately designed things. So when about do you know that changeover happened?
Well, I mean, some modern day tarot decks don't follow that kind of changeover into more kind of established scenes. Like, for example, I have a German... It's classed a Gypsy tarot deck. I don't know how comfortable I am calling it the Gypsy tarot deck, but that's what it's called, and it turns out it's German. And when I first got it, I found it hilarious because, like, I opened it up and literally, you know, 7 of Swords is just 7 swords. Do you know what I mean? There's no actual scene or narrative within that card. It's literally just 7 swords. And I was like, oh, interesting.
See, I have a very similar deck in that it's meant to be based on a 14th century one from
is it based
Italy.
on the Marseille? The Marseille tarot? Is it that one? Which would be more French, I guess. Yeah, I mean, the closest reproduction to, I guess, what the original was the Tarot of Marseille. So I think that might be the same one that that was given to me by my gran, or at least I have the Major Arcana. This one. Is it the same deck?
Yes, yeah, it's exactly the same. You want to know what's interesting as well? My mum has the same deck too.
Huh.
And I didn't realise until, because I'd ordered this one, it's like a vintage one from the 70s, and when it turned up and I opened the box, I was like, I've seen these before. And then sent my mum a quick message being like, do you have these? Like, yes! Showed them to you when you were about 14. I was like, aha!
It makes sense.
It all makes sense now.
So I believe that, that version of the tarot is based on the Marseille cards.
Oh, okay.
So basically some obviously modern cards, they do follow the more traditional style of, like, the cups, the swords, the coins, you know, the polo sticks. Polo sticks, which obviously kind of changed over to, like, staves or wands, basically. Obviously, I think in kind of following almost the traditional cards in terms of playing cards, obviously coins represents diamonds, cups represents hearts. I believe spades is swords. So that's all. That's the mind, and then clubs will be. What's the last thing? I've gone completely. That's wands, I think. Clubs are wands.
Okay.
I think that translates as that. I would say. I mean, obviously, like, there are people that will probably contest this, but, like, the Rider-Waite deck was when tarot started moving towards being a divination system. And I guess a more kind of esoteric meaning was applied to the imagery.
Or at least it popularized it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't already a thing, it was the mass-produced version of the thing, or the easily accessible version of it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe, like, the cards which aren't the major arcana, like, a word for them were the pip cards, which I'd never actually heard before until I did a bit of research. But it was during that time with, like, the Rider-Waite tarot that those cards started to be illustrated and given, I guess, the kind of esoteric understandings of what the cards, you know, represent. So, like, you know, when you see, like, the swords cards, and it's basically, you know, the further up the suit you go, the more people are essentially getting, like, stabbed with swords, you know? It's like, oh, 9 and 10 of swords, great. Ruin, destruction, pain, you know.
What I found really interesting as well was, so I have a Rider-Waite deck as well, and the meanings that come with the Rider-Waite deck, like it comes with a little leaflet of like the original, in inverted commas, meanings written down at the time and all that kind of stuff, and they are all grim compared to like the more modern tarot books and stuff like that and the more modern readings. Like, it's like, it feels like getting told off by your two grands. I don't know if this is just a me thing or just a Scottish thing, but like, there's always one grand that's gonna
Scalp your arse.
tell you the truth. There's
Yeah.
always one that's gonna sit you down and have a cup of tea and tell you the nice way. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it feels like it's like that. It's
Yeah, totally.
although the meanings are in the same area,
Yes.
they're very, very different at the same time.
See, what I like about tarot readings, especially tarot readings which fall with more traditional cards, as opposed to, as you say, kind of like more looking at more kind of modern tarot and like the oracle cards, is that I find that a lot of like oracle cards, oracle systems, it's very love and light, it's very like this is all for your personal spiritual development, and it very much couches negative things in this idea of like spiritual growth, and it's all what your soul intended, and yada yada yada. And then with the tarot, it's literally that line from I was about to say Poltergeist, that's not true, Ghost, where Whoopi Goldberg is like, you in danger, girl. Do you know what I mean? It literally, like, tarot is that. It's like, it does not...
They're coming for you, Barbara.
They're coming for you, Barbara. Yeah, it's like the original tarot don't really talk about... Oh, can I swear? Is that okay?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I like how I asked you that question before starting to record today, and I hadn't got an answer myself.
Well,
I will silence it out with the power of editing if I so wish.
Excellent.
I
Wonderful.
have that power.
You do have that power. Yeah, so, you know, I find that tarot, which follows the more kind of traditional system, is a bit more like, if you're going to get some bad news, you're going to get some bad news. It's not going to sugarcoat it for you. Whereas more, I think the further you've pushed into the New Age movement from like the 70s, the more it's like, oh, a piano is going to fall on top of you tomorrow, but it's fine because it's all for your spiritual development. Yes, it won't hurt that much. It'll just bruise your soul and your ego, but your ego needs to be checked, bitch. So, oh, sorry. But you know what I mean?
Bitch will always be allowed here, by the way.
Good, I'd be
That's
very
just
upset.
a friendly term of endearment.
I know, hey bitch!
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a really quick question as well.
Yes.
Do you feel, this has really nothing to do with tarot, this is just my own personal intrigue. Do you feel like that modern day oracle positivity is more fruitful in a way than the tarot's more straight talking to it? Do you know what I mean? Do you feel like, I guess it probably depends on the person and how they receive something, but just with the whole like positivity movement and stuff like that, I have a love-hate relationship with it, where I'm like, yes, 100% embrace positivity in your life, get those toxic bitches out, like that kind of thing. But I also feel like there's a overwhelming pressure to be positive all of the time, and I am strongly against that. I think that people should publicly say, no, I'm having a bad time of it at the moment. No, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling stressed. I think anger is an incredibly important emotion, because nothing changes in the world without people getting angry about something. And I'm like, no, we need to funnel this anger. Stop this positivity. Funnel the anger to the good things. So I'm interested, where do you think that line is, if there is one, of this kind of oracle card positivity into the kind of more straight talking tarot? Like, where do you sit on?
Where do I, so
on
yes,
the scale?
where do I sit on the spectrum? Well, isn't that a question? That's a question for another podcast. So, okay, well, I mean, I can only, I guess, come from my own experience and my own kind of practice and all that kind of stuff. So, my take on spirituality, first of all, is, I guess, it's on the slightly darker end of the spectrum. Like, I'm just going to put my hands up and just say that's kind of where I sit more. Even within, like, my Buddhist practice, it's, like, I focus a lot more on the wrathful aspects and the kind of practices around, like, death and all this kind of stuff. This does have a link, by the way. Like, don't worry. I just realised.
I'm here. I'm interested. I'm around for the ride. Like.
Okay, that's good. That's fine, because I'm listening to myself. I'm like, does this even have any relevance? It does. So, because I think I prefer a practice which is rooted in a more darker aesthetic. I prefer the more truthful aspect to the tarot because the more no-nonsense, I guess, aspect of the tarot, or the fact that I feel the tarot provides a wider spectrum of possibilities and experiences and readings. I think it's all encompassed within the tarot, but, within the tarot, especially, more traditionally inclined decks, you have those cards, which are the positivity, the joy, abundance, growth, happiness, love, sexuality. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is encompassed within all of it. And then you have the cards, where it's literally like you're going to get stabbed in the back with like 10 different swords and your life is ruined. Do you know what I mean? And
just a Tuesday, innit?
Just a Tuesday. I mean, that's what I do on a Friday night. Anyway. Like I don't know. I feel there is a more of an accurate representation of life within the tarot, and because I'm drawn to that kind of side of things a bit more, it makes more sense to me. Mm-hmm. In the oracle. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go.
In the oracle system, if I'm being totally honest, I know a lot of people that read oracle cards, and if I'm being totally honest, a lot of people that I've had readings from who, like, read oracle cards, in my opinion, have a lot of suppressed anger. Because they are it's like they follow this kind of love and light kind of idea to
the forced positivity thing.
To the extreme, where it's like, I am all for owning your feelings, I'm all for embracing both your positive experiences and your negative experiences, because in terms of looking at it from a Buddhist perspective, I want to get to that point where I start seeing non-duality. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to experience both the positives and the negatives to transcend that eventually. And that's what a lot of my practice and a lot of my initiations through the tradition that I practice are based on. So I think when you've got somebody that is constantly like, everything's great, everything's fine, everything's love and light and happy, and I don't think that's being authentic, and I think it actually blocks spiritual progress, in my opinion.
I will say, in defense of them, not that I know much about them, but in defense of that oracle card positivity thing and stuff like that, I reckon it must depend wholly on the person, though, as well.
Completely.
If you're in a place in your life where there's negativity everywhere, maybe the only advice you want is going to be that positive kind of thing, in which case that oracle spiritual side of it
definitely
is probably more suited for where you are in that point. The last thing you want after a horrificness in your life to go and read tarot cards for some spiritual inspiration, and it's like, yeah, you doomed, bitch. Oh, right, cool,
well,
okay.
It's a bit like Job in the Bible, isn't it? Kind of looking up at God and being like, oh, shit. Like, yeah, no, completely. And that's the thing, like, I don't want I just want to say that that's, from me personally, that's not like a blanket statement.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody that I've ever had like an oracle reading from is like that. Believe me, I've had some amazing readings from people with oracle cards, and they've been, fantastic. Like, I have a friend who is a medium who's given me an amazing, reading through oracle cards and all that kind of stuff. So you can. I think it's just, personally, it's not my bag, and I feel like a lot of people who jump on that kind of new age train, I think a lot of the time they're coming from the very toxicity, that's good English, the toxic environment that you can get, for example, from more traditional religion. So they're going to new age, traditions, being like, no, I don't want rules and dogma, I want light and peace and love and connection with the earth and all this kind of stuff. And so I think that's the attraction for a lot of people, going towards that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, I think there is a danger of then going completely in the opposite direction and excluding the negative because you don't want to face it, if that makes sense.
And sort of walking through with blinkers on rather than...
It's like, it's fine. That gif I send you all the time where it's the dog sat
daily.
at the table? I send that to you practically daily, and it's like sipping its coffee.
all around, and she's like, this is fine.
This is fine. It's fine. And you're like, well, but it's okay not to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So the tarot cards having more of a diverse meaning throughout the deck is more important to you, kind of, in a summary.
Completely.
Yeah. Same here. Same. I like that aspect to it and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's that thing of people will find what they need to find in that moment in their life and all that kind of stuff as well. So.
Oh, completely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I've had readings with tarot where it's literally been like the devil's appeared 5 times, and you're like, but there's only one devil in the pack. But, and it's, no, I'm joking. No, but you know what I mean? Like, you've, like, you have, like, the most horrific set of cards, and you're like, you know what I think this means? I just need to love myself more. So don't get me wrong, I do think that people will get what they need from the tarot, regardless. But I do like sometimes to have that card and you're like, oh, okay, well, you were just fucking honest, weren't you? God's sake, Deborah. I don't know why I'm calling my tarot cards Deborah, but you know what I mean.
So, next episode, we're going to start off with the very first of the major arcana, which is actually 0, which is the Fool.
Indeed.
Yeah. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed this.
Me
and I
too.
really hope it's been fun and enjoyable to listen to and not just
who are these clowns?
Because I love your company. I hope you love my company. You're stuck with me whether you do or not. But I'm always a bit paranoid that to other people it might just be thingy. So let us know if you have any questions or any feedback or anything like that. You can leave a comment under the video on YouTube, which will be up on the Bujo Cult YouTube channel. It will be in the description if this is just on a podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then you're already there. You just need to scroll down a little bit. It's fine, love. You'll make it. And I really want to know who's starting out on this whole kind of tarot journey at the same time, because I've had a couple of people message and stuff who say that they're going to start a tarot journal and go along with us and things, and that's really, really cool. And I'd love to almost make a little community of us who are starting that out, maybe even get a Discord server or something like that going so we can kind of all support each other and talk in between episodes and things. I think that'd be really fun. So yeah, if you would like to, you can find us both on Instagram. My Instagram is at BujoCult. That's BUJOCULT. And Stevie's is?
Mine is at Restless House. So that's restless and then house spelt the German spelling because I'm bougie in that. So HAUS. Okay, so Restless House.
And they'll be linked below in the video and they'll be in text underneath the podcast too. Oh, and Stevie's first episode of their podcast, The Widdershins Yarn, will be coming out. Is it on the Friday or the Saturday? I keep forgetting.
It's on the Friday.
So Friday the 23rd.
Yes.
So definitely check that out. It's going to have some pre-Halloween spookiness, and then there's going to be a Halloween special as well the next week. I'm super excited about. Yeah, we say
I'm
goodbye.
terrified. Anyway, no.
Oh no, baby, no!
No, I'm not terrified. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm really excited by it. Yes.
I mean, it's a horror podcast. You should be terrified.
Well, at least I feel like I'm doing it right. Am I doing it right?
Cool.
I'm doing it right. Okay.
Alright,
Great.
right. We will love you and leave you. Love you. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. Mwah.